What a joy that you have found us for this podcast. How exciting it is to think that this spiritual message is going out to people around this planet. Whether your life is working at a peak level or whether it can use some enhancement, have I got the message for you today. So get a piece of paper, get ready to take notes, call a friend, have them watch this podcast also. Then you too can have something to talk about and take it to a deeper level. So enjoy. Here we go.
Good morning, Seaside. I'm Reverend Tammy Miller. It is my joy to be with you here today, to be in this spiritual space and to allow this message and the presence of God to just touch us in a magnificent way. Reverend Christian will be back next week. As he's coming back from Costa Rica, we know that he'll be fresh and new and have all kinds of stories to tell us. But it's nice to be with you here today. I've chosen to talk the title, Thy Grace is Thy Sufficiency. And the reason that I've chosen that is because it seems in my life lately, I have a lot of people that mean a lot to me that are not doing well or having a lot of illnesses and challenges in their world. And there's nothing that's more painful than to have somebody that you love be going through a difficult time. And so we actually started, I do the Wednesday night service, and at Wednesday night we're following along with a book called The 12 Conditions of a Miracle. And it's about positioning ourselves so that all that God's grace and all that God is can be in our lives, so that we are positioned for the miracles. We're positioned for that which God is, and that promise that of all is God, that all is the kingdom, can be our life as that demonstration. And so thy grace is thy sufficiency. Grace means activity of God. Sufficiency is all I need. So in layman's term, this talk is the activity of God is all that I need. The activity of God. I hope today to remind us how powerful that we really are. How powerful that this universe is. How loving this God is. God, life, source, whatever you want to call it. How giving it is. And how we are placed here in its image and likeness and have within us this power and presence that is perfect, that is all-encompassing, that is all-giving, that is abundant, that is filled with health and wholeness, that is all that we could ever desire. It already is who and what we are. And so I'm knowing that as we go forth in this realization, and we look at the power of prayer, and we realize that as we know this truth, all things are added unto us. But to remember this, I wanted to share with you, there's a Dr. Larry Dossey who wrote a book, Healing Words. It's probably one of the most powerful books that I have written, and because it actually gives for us that are analytical, us people that like to think and like to see proof of things, it actually has a number of experiments in it on how powerful prayer is and that it really does work. As they've measured it with brain waves, they've measured it on the effects of individuals. And one of the most famous experiments that's in this book is called the Spindrift experiment. And what it does is it takes a petri dish, and in this petri dish, it puts seeds in it. And it takes the petri dish and it divides it in half. On one side is A, on the other side is B. And it uses a group of individuals to pray for these seeds on the A side and not on the B side. And just in regular, everyday experience, the A side of the petri dish was actually more thriving, and there was more seeds and more growth just normal prayer. Now, this prayer wasn't prayer that was done right on top of it. It wasn't using energy. It wasn't doing any of these things. In fact, the people that were giving prayer weren't even in the same room. But they showed that prayer works. But then what they decided to do was they decided to add a stress to the seeds. So what they did was they put some salt water in the petri dishes, and they could tell that these seedlings were suffering. And what they realized is that when they prayed on the A and the B side again, that the A side thrived even more than it did when it was healthy. And we already know about that, knowing that already within us is when something is not working right, we have this huge vacuum, this huge desire to feel good, this huge desire to call in health and truth and knowingness that we have inside of us. But the experiments showed that prayer becomes more powerful when we're stressed. It also did an experiment to see if there was time and space involved here. So they're looking at the energy of this and seeing if there's energy, but what they really did was they put the people in another state praying on this Petri dish. And it still thrived. So there's no time and space. It's not that we're doing something to anyone when we're in prayer, but there's one mind, there's one power. They call it non-local in the book. There's something that's in this connection that makes a difference when we pray. No time, no space. It doesn't matter where we're at. And then they looked at it and thought and tried it to see, well, does it matter if the people know specifically what they're praying for, if that matters, or if they don't know, if it's just kind of a wide open prayer for all Petri dishes in the world or something, so if they knew specifically what they were praying for, if that made a difference. And they actually found that it did. So it means not that we're directing our prayer on what the prayer is about, but that we know in our mind what it is that we want or who or what is in or part of our prayer. And then they looked at if it mattered, if we prayed for something specific, if we prayed that the illness is gone or prayed for somebody's abundance, if that made a difference. Or if we just prayed that thy will be done. And what they found, that thy will be done, was much more powerful than when we prayed for a specific outcome that we think is the best for a situation. And then they wanted to discover if more prayer was necessary. And so they took the same Petri dish and they had an A and the B and the C. One group prayed for the A and B, and one group prayed for the B and C. So therefore the B got prayed on twice. And what they found was that the B section of the Petri dish was twice as affluent, grew twice as much as the other sides. So more prayer reaps twice the results. And we've said that before on Wednesday or on Sunday or at services. We've said if you pray for 5 minutes, you get 5 minutes worth of results. So this is a journey. This is a spiritual living. This is a spiritual life. But how powerful that is on the power of prayer, on what they discovered. No time and space, that it's thy will be done, it's wide open. And they also discovered that it doesn't matter what kind of prayer was prayed on. There is no right or wrong in a prayer. They just told people to pray. They didn't tell them they had to do it a particular way or anything like that. They just said, pray. So often we worry about that. Am I doing it right? Did I do something wrong or what's happening here? And we forget in our busy world, we forget how powerful that we really are, how powerful prayer really is. Joel Goldsmith in his books Consciousness Transformed talks about this. He says, it, not I, heals the sick, raises the dead, and feeds the hungry. We are not the miracle workers who go out and say, I will make you healthy, wealthy, and wise. No. But if we attain a measure of grace and you touch our consciousness with some measure of receptivity, you will be lifted up. If there is not that spiritual receptivity, you will have to wait until there is. Because we have no power to change men's lives. The Christ, the God within, when it touches receptivity, changes lives. God's grace, the answer to prayer, healing, is not dependent on anything except for our recognition of it. God does not give healing. God does not give abundance. God does not give whatever it is that we may be asking for because God does not withhold it from us. It is already there. It is already present. So it's in the opening up, it's in the consciousness of it that the light shines through. It's with the consciousness that is open, that is empty, that allows God's grace, the activity of God, to go through. So we realize how powerful that we really are. We really are funnels. We really are conduits for something. As we open up and empty, we allow something that already is, that is grander and bigger, to move through us. On Wednesday, as we're studying these conditions of a miracle, two of them have kind of stood out for me in particular, and one of them is to be empty. That we need to take the time often to stop, to be empty. If we're so busy and there's so much going on in our mind all the time, then we have no space for anything new or anything big or anything grander than us to come in. Same thing's true not only in our mind, but in our outside world. If we have so much stuff everywhere, we have no room for something new. And so the concept of emptying has been enticing to me because, in meditation, so often we think, okay, stop and hear thy still small voice. And I don't know about you, but sometimes it's like, where is it? I'm not hearing it talking to me. Where is it? And we go into meditation and we're wanting something like thunder and lightning or something to be talking to us, but it's stillness and it's silence. But there's power when we talk about emptying. If we take 5 minutes, and the Wednesday night service, we take 5 minutes every night in a meditation in the middle of the service. We sing into it with a chant. Because there's nothing more powerful than aligning us with the universe than song. Because in song and in music, and most all of us love it, in that space is all of the vibrations of the entire universe. And as we hear it and we become with it, it instantly bypasses the brain and goes to every cell in our body in harmonic alignment. It's powerful. But then to take that time and to sit empty in the silence. To create an empty space, science says nature abhors a vacuum, or spirit fills emptiness. And we know that God has shown up and God is there because we feel peace, or we feel joy, or we feel kindness, or we feel a shift different from when we went into it. Emptiness. And being empty and taking that time to be quiet is where we give Spirit time to show up in our lives. It's show up time. It also talks in this book, Conditions of a Miracle, it talks about grounding and how powerful that is. Because electricity, when you look at electricity, most of us, our parents have taught us never to stand on a metal ladder or to stand on the ground and put our finger in a light socket or do any of these things because it grounds it. What happens is that the earth is empty of the same electrons or whatever it is that's coming through there, and it pulls it through us. And that's where we get shocked. But if you have like something stopping it, something like rubber boots on or something like that, then it can't pull from the source because it's blocked. But the same is true in nature as it is within us. As we are open, this universe does not go around handing stuff out. I think I'll give you a little of this, a little of that. What happens is through our consciousness, we pull it through. Because we are grounded on solid ground, we are calm, we are at peace, and we are grounded, open, wide open for Spirit. And in that space, it pulls from our source, from the universe, those things that we want. The activity of God, the grace of God, which is all around us. It's powerful. And so we know that as we're doing that our prayers are not that which saves someone, as Joel Goldsman says, or they are not power, but they are the instrument through which God's grace is released. Opening of consciousness to the presence of God brings forth the power. So we're not going through when we have those that we love and those that are having challenging times, we're not going through doing anything to them. We're not healing them. We're revealing God. And as we become that conduit, anyone in our field can feel it. And if they are receptive to it, God's grace has a place from which to land that's come through us. We look at that when we look in the Bible, the story of Moses with the Israelites in Egypt. One consciousness, one powerful consciousness saved thousands of lives. An open consciousness of God, of the possibility of God, allowed it to pull through it. He didn't know what he was doing. He wasn't this genius. He didn't even think he could do it. But one open consciousness solved these issues. So it is not our job to go fix something or to go solve something or to go figure it out or to heal something. It's our job simply to allow the activity of God to move through us, because the light dissolves the darkness. Light does not go on and get rid of the darkness in the room. It goes away. God consciousness, God light dissolves the issue. It doesn't go and fix it. Because prayer and our spiritual truth, our spiritual body, and that alignment of who and what we are is not of this world. So that illness and all of those challenges that we are having are at one level, but when we see and know God consciousness, it pulls that power, it pulls us above the challenge. Prayer is powerful. And we know it, and we see the demonstration of it. We know that God is in the house. We know that God is in the room when all of a sudden there's a peace around us. We know that the presence is at work. The activity of God is at work when all of a sudden we can kind of feel the love that's flowing. When we see kindness that is happening around us. When we see shifts within individuals. When we see change. When we see those types of activities, that is the activity of God. Not thy will, but God, in its own way, allowing the individual to go through whatever is necessary for them to go through for their grace, for their highest calling. We're powerful. We're really powerful. 5 seconds, 1 minute, 5 minutes of closing your eyes and praying. It's a huge difference. We look at this, in the dossier also talks about an experiment called the Maharishi experiment. And it was done back in the 70s when TM, Transcendental Meditation, was really popular. And what they did was they took 25 different cities, and in those cities they divided them in half, and half of them had at least 1% of the individuals within that city that was doing Transcendental Meditation, and the other ones did not. And what they discovered was that the crime rate in those cities was down almost 9% in the cities of those that did meditation on a daily basis versus the others. And they said, how could that happen? What makes sense of that? What's really happening here in science? What's going on? And what they realized is they started looking at some other elements like lead and water and helium. And what they found is that at a certain point, when things got cold or when they settled down or the activity became less, in this example of these material items, they added coolness to them, which slowed them down, calmed them down. That actually all of the electrons or whatever is in those types of things slowed down and became orderly and coherent. And that actually something brand new was created from those elements, whether it was ice or whether with helium it became this incredible heating source. But what they discovered is that there was what's called a phase transition that happens. That a transition happens that is beyond what the material normal activity is, when it becomes coherent and orderly. So the same is true with TM, with meditation. What happens is the individuals slow down, become coherent and orderly, and the whole city responds. Look at our own lives. How powerful it is when we stop, slow down, and become orderly. Things just line up. How powerful prayer, How powerful meditation, how powerful it is to just close our eyes to this outside world and move within to that inner sanctuary. There's a book, Power versus Force, with Hawkins. And it talks about this and some different examples, and it was talking about the vibration of those individuals that meditate, the vibrations of those individuals that are like gurus and those types of people. And they were saying that the average individual is calibered at under 200. But those people that are on a spiritual path are even higher. They might go for 250. Those people that stay in love and non-judgment are vibrating like at 500, and it goes on up. But what they realized is that an individual that lives at the space of love, that lives at the calibration of 500, counterbalances 750,000 individuals that are operating at a lower level. 750,000. One consciousness, one prayer, one connection with God, one truth, one individual. We have no idea how powerful just closing your eyes is. Grace is all around us, in, through, and as us. And it is that activity of God, which means the letting go of our own activity and our own busyness, and getting into the stillness, completely still, creates the space where Spirit fills us up. And so that's what I've learned more recently, looking at it from this perspective on how important it is to stop, and stop often, no matter how long or how much time you really have. Remember the book Embraced by the Light? It was out about 10 years ago. One of the things that I remember most about that book is the woman was in a car accident and died for a short while and then came back. So the story is about that. And what she had said is when she was in that car accident, that when she was out of her body and looking down at the accident, what she saw was the people that were going by, the cars that were going by that were praying. She saw them as this beam of light that was going from their car up into the heavens. And I've never forgotten that, thinking about how powerful we are when we see an accident or we see something that's happening around us, or we hear a fire engine, or we hear something that's going on, to just stop and take a minute and pray. How powerful is it when we see those people or things that are going on in our lives, those friends that we love, those that are so dear to us? Let us not think that our prayer is not doing anything. Let us know that those that are in pain and those that are going through challenges, by us just stopping, we don't have to be near them, we don't have to be anything, by us just stopping and holding them in prayer is creating the activity of God in their life, and it all is perfect. We're powerful. I want to close with a reading from Joel Goldsmith. To rightly understand the nature of prayer is the most important function of any individual on the face of the globe. When prayer is rightly understood, it brings all of God's wisdom, power, and all of God's peace into this room, into this home, into this business, into this community, into this nation, into this world. Prayer, which is the most important subject on earth, is the least understood subject in the entire world. We can afford to give all of our time to learning the nature of prayer. Learning to solve our problems will wait, but learning the nature of prayer will not. We learned about prayer through Moses, who did not pray for a cloud by day or a pillar of fire by night, but received them. We learned about prayer through Jesus, who never prayed to heal the sick, but they were healed. For prayer is the activation of God. Your attitude must be one where you are open to the activity of the Spirit within you. Then you will understand why the Master said, I can of my own self do nothing. The Father within doeth the work. When you witness that once and experience some fruitage of the Spirit of God within you, you will then be able to see what happens on earth when God has an outlet. For thy grace is thy sufficiency. It's all we need. The activity of God is all I need. For it is God's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. We already have it. We just have to open the doors to receive it. Invite us to turn within. As we take a deep breath and release it. And closing our eyes to this outside world and going within to that inner sanctuary. That inner place where we give our complete and full attention to the activity of God that is within us. That companion, that constant companion that is guiding and leading, that is healing and filling us with abundance, that is gracing our world with peace and love and joy, who is calling unto us those that can love us, those that are kind to us, those things that are important to us. It is the activity of God, the grace of God that is active within each and every one of us. Let us all be an outlet. Let us all be grounded in the spiritual truth. Let those who see us see that which created us. And may all that we love and all that we come in contact with be lifted up by the awareness, by the consciousness from which we live. The heart that's filled with gratitude. I say thank you, Mother, Father, God, for this truth, for this teaching, for this realization. For it is through realization that God's grace is bestowed. And so it is.
So I'd like to invite the ushers to come forward as we do take our gift from our heart. Again, a lot of heart and soul and passion. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I give, and all that I receive. I am prosperous now. Hey, I trust you enjoyed that podcast. It was very exciting to be able to create that and to know that there are people like you all around the world that are observing and integrating these spiritual principles into their life. And so if you enjoyed it, what I'd like to do is encourage you to tell a friend or bring several friends together and watch another one of these podcasts, and then afterwards take some time to talk about the spiritual principles, to talk about the stories and what significance they have and relevance they have in your life. What then happens is it moves to a deeper and deeper level in your world. It becomes real and assists you to create the freedom in your life that your heart and soul so desire. So if you like this, I encourage you to watch it again, but also tune into our website here at seasidecenter.org. There, you can get some of my written material and take a look at it. You can read some of my spiritual prayers. You can even go to our online bookstore and order some of the books. And if you're so moved, what I greatly would appreciate is your financial support, which you could do online at seasidecenter.org. It is support like yours that assists us to be able to continue to do these kinds of gifts for humanity and send it out to the world. Because you know what? We are making a difference with this spiritual message. And because of support like yours, people are being touched in the farthest reaches of this planet, as well as our backyard, more than we could ever begin to realize. So I thank you from the fullness of my heart for making a difference.